Okay. My name is Mo Ash. I am an instructional designer, or how I call myself, a learning architect, because kind of like my role goes beyond only doing design. I do design, I do development, do a little bit of coding. I work with game design a little bit, so I do a little bit of everything. And my background is in L&D consultancy. Been working in the field for about 15 years. And currently I have my own establishment called The Catalyst, and we create learning. That's it.
And I'm Dr. Tabatha Dragonberry. I'm a senior instructional designer in the corporate world. I've also worked in academia. Mo and I we're both game enthusiasts, and that's how we connected many, many years ago, and have just been learning from each other and inspiring each other on different things since, and really just digging in. I feel like this is going to be a public conversation of what me and him do privately regularly.
And Tabatha's working on her second doctorate degree.
Second? Wow, that's amazing.
Second?
I like
no.
What?
It's academic. I am an academic. It's academic degree number 8.
Wow. I think that's I can see the two of you have that in common. This need to learn stuff. Because I also met Mo through the instructional design principles course, which is like another thing that he obviously is like really eager to learn. I think I'm learning so much from your mindsets as well. Tara, would you like to quickly jump in and intro?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tara. I'm the community manager at EduFlow Academy's community, which you can be a part of if you want to just let me know if you're like, oh, I'm interested. We have a bunch of learning and development professionals in our community, mostly from the courses that we run. So EduFlow Academy runs a bunch of courses. Some of them are free, some of them are premium, some of them are self-paced, but basically just a bunch of things to get expert opinions, ideas, inspiration to you on various topics. So I'm super excited to be here, and I'll just be in the background in the chat.
Thanks, Tara. And my name is William Cronier, and I am an instructional designer and program manager, and I help to run with Tara EduFlow Academy. But as Tara mentioned, EduFlow's Academy's big goal is to show people that learning online doesn't have to be just videos and quizzes. It can be so much more fun, so much more interactive, and so much more effective if we just use all of these amazing resources and tools better than we are using them at the moment. And I guess that leads us to the topic of today, which is gamification. And I remember whenever Mo and I talk about gamification, we end up ranting about gamification that's been done so badly that it's almost tarnished the brand of gamification. And I can see Mo's already your expression is amazing. And I think that's kind of what prompted this session. So maybe we can start with the basics and just try to define what gamification is. And on top of that, if you can tell me what are the defining characteristics, or what are the defining features of gamification? Tabatha or Mo, whoever would like to jump in, you're welcome.
I think with gamification, we're really looking at motivators. It is using game mechanics, story to keep people motivated in learning. You're not building a game per se, but you're utilizing that in learning. And many times when, I talk to people or post some questions, many times it's like, oh, well, I gamified this and I used the gamification. And my question to them is like, oh, so what motivators are instilled in your course that is the gamification portion? And it will be, oh, I use variables, triggers, and layers. And that's a part of storyline, but that's not gamification. So just throwing that gamified quiz, it's game-based learning, but it's not gamification because that's something it's a system. It's not just a one-off in a course.
Mo, would you like to add anything to that?
Okay. Well, thank you, Amelia, and thank you, Tabatha. Well, let's just start off with the basics. So what really is a game? Let me take it from the top, okay? So what is a game? Well, a game is basically an artificial conflict where players of some sort or a player is taking part in that conflict. And at the end, there's a quantifiable outcome. So this is basically what a game is, okay? And if I'm doing, let me get something here. If I'm getting my glasses here and I'm just doing this, okay, what am I doing? I'm playing. No aim, no nothing. And I'm just throwing my glasses and I'm basically smearing the lenses, but there's no aim behind what I'm doing, by all means. But if Tara told me right now, okay, I want you to count how many times you can just juggle those glasses in a minute. Now we're going into a game. Now we're having some sort of an artificial conflict. But don't get me wrong when it comes to conflict and a game, because conflict can be conflict of competition, can be conflict of collaboration, can be collaboration competition, can be competition collaboration. There are many different forms. And that can get me into a whole myriad of conversations about the different types of games that are there. We have your video games, you have your abstract games, you have your card games, you have the board games, you have all sorts of games. Okay, so to take this, now, game is a system, input, output, players, quantifiable outcome. You take a learning design, an existing solid learning design, and you lay that system on it. You lay that game system on it. So players turn into learners. And then the input is the context of the learning, the knowledge, the skill acquisition, the type of motivation that would take the people from one milestone in the system to another. And then the artificial conflict is basically me as a learner interacting with the system, trying to make sense of it, which is all of your knowledge retention, space repetition, micro-learning, blended learning, social collaborations, you name it, in a learning design. And at the end, instead of a quantifiable outcome, which is score, well, it's learning objective. So that's what basically gamification is all about when they always say adding game elements. I am adding game elements or components in the form of avatars, progress bars, points or no points, competition or no competition, collaboration or not. But the thing is, I am trying to ease a journey all the way to a destined outcome. And outcome in our domain, in our field, in our realm is a learning objective. So that's what gamification is all about. It doesn't have to be a game, but I am planting some game elements to get the people moving. It's to motivate them to finish a journey all the way to the end.
I love that. I can't believe that example with your glasses is just like an off-the-cuff example. That was really, really
It was
profound.
actually an awful.
That's really cool. Yeah, yeah, maybe we can move into this. Or yeah, okay, like defining features or like features of gamification. I think when a lot of people think about gamification, they think about points, badges, and leaderboards. What like, do they always have to have points, badges, and leaderboards, or can you make a gamified learning experience that doesn't have those features?
100%. You can make a gamified experience that has nothing to do with points, badges, and leaderboards. With that narrative, I think that to me is one of the best forms of gamification, is adding that narrative and adding that journey and those challenges along the way that you're overcoming. Mo and I are building something and we are gamifying it, and 100% there is no points like badges and leaderboards in it, because that doesn't add value to this particular course. There might be something where it is. You have to kind of look at the motivators of learners. So if I'm looking at salespeople and they're maybe commission driven, that might be something that I would layer in because it really works for that motivation. But there are a lot of people where that doesn't really get them going. So you kind of have to look and understand where your learners are and what motivates them or what's the reasoning behind it to be able to say, these are the elements that we're going to layer in.
I think you make such a good point about knowing who your audience is. And that goes back to like the importance of analysis. I remember I read this rant by Donald Clark about gamification and about like being so frustrated that he had to do all these things to earn points, and there was like no meaning behind the points, so they just felt like extraneous cognitive load to some extent, like completely unnecessary information. And I think like what you mentioned about knowing your audience, like if you had to design it, you have to think about specifically who you're designing this for and how can you like trigger their motivators very effectively. So that's really awesome. And maybe that again like brings us to the next question, which is we can even like relate it to this example that you mentioned earlier, Tabatha, where let's say you've got a brief. When did you or how did you decide that gamification is the right approach, the right way to solve your problem? And when would gamification not be needed? How do you make that decision?
I think you're having to look at your subject matter. You're also having to look at the time frame, because I think gamification isn't one of these rapid dev situations, because you're really needing to do the research, you're needing to dig in, coming up with a narrative and figuring out everything is not always that easy. But I think it's when you're looking at it and it's adding value to that course, and you're not just slapping it on everything. Because I think that's what a lot of it's like, oh, this is a buzzword. Yeah, it's a buzzword, but if effectively executed, you have to look at your learning outcomes and figure out, does this work to be able to be pitched to the team as a solution? Because many people will come and say, oh, I want a game, but when you're looking at it, you're just like, this doesn't layer into the learning and doesn't add value. So I think that just as much as gamification can be effective, there's a lot of research that says that when you don't use the right pieces, it actually demotivates and de-engages those learners. And I know Mo has some information on research associated to that we were talking about this morning.
Well, gamification is sexy. I mean, who doesn't like to have a game in their repertoire? Okay. And what company these days wouldn't like to, add some points of loyalty in their organization by saying, oh, well, building our learning culture using game-based learning and gamification system. Ooh, I want to get hired. I want to be with those people. So yeah, it is sexy. It's a buzzword. That's true. And by the way, don't get me wrong, a lot of our companies can apply that. But the point of the matter is, let's put two nuances aside so we can get things into perspective. So we have the gamification, which is the overarching, which is basically not really a game. It's just another discipline to a system, and you're just planting and using game elements. And then you have the other one, her favorite cousin, which is game-based learning. And I love that cousin because, well, I built a business around that one. So game-based learning is basically me, William, Tara, and Tabatha, we're playing a game. And that game, throughout the experience of the game, I am gaining a skill. I am practicing something during the process of playing it or being engaged with it. And I am retaining knowledge. I am acquiring extra knowledge from the game and through the game. On the other hand, gamification doesn't have to be specifically teaching me something, because I always like to use the word steam engine. It has a lot of steam engines that keeps me going. And this is really built on basic motivational psychology. So let's look at two theories here. We have the Victor Vroom's expectancy theory in motivation, which is purely extrinsic motivation, and it's dependent on, you get extrinsic motivation that has value, their word actually is relevant to you, to the end of all that since the 1970s. And then you have the other one by Ryan Abdeshi, or Desi, depends on how you pronounce it. It's called the self-determination theory, that looks inward into yourself, which is how far you have the autonomy, you have the agency, how far you are gaining skill mastery, you're leveling up. That's why we always say gamification system, you need to have a progression system. And also, is it purposeful? Is it relevant? And when we're talking relevant, like EduFlow, for instance, you put a lot of force into social collaboration, which is part of relatedness. It's part of being purposeful, because I can find a community of practice that can help me out. Because at the end of the day, we do follow flock behavior and herd behavior. When everyone is doing it, it's like, well, I should be doing it as well. And human beings, they're purpose maximizers. So if there's a purpose and I'm gaining at each and every step more mastery, and I'm getting better at it, and I'm having the choice of doing it, then it works. So those are like possibly the two main psychological theories, if you may, that many gamification systems are built upon. Now, both are applied to gamification and game-based learning. The only problem is that game-based learning is a centered event where people are actually playing a game that has a start and has an end, and you learn through it. Gamification can span on a long time, and it can have periods of being a bit stagnant. It picks up and it goes into the form of probably a campaign or a journey or more. But a game-based, it can stay from all the way from 1 hour, 2 hours to 2-3 days, like the board games that we do. My board game, the one that I might be meeting you in Cape Town for, it stays for 3 days. Okay, we played for 3 days. So this is like a main thing between both of them. So how do we consider this? I get a lot of requests from companies that come to me and be like, oh, we want a game. Like, why do you want that? Certain things need to be put into consideration. Number one, I need to know that the learning design is solid and I can build a game upon. Second thing, I need to see how relevant it is to the learner, to the actions that you want the learner to achieve. And also, and this is something that I'm borrowing from Carl Cupp, which is affordance. Is the learning design and the game design you're planning on building, has the affordance relevant enough to the learner's aspiration, goals, means of utility, ability for them to interact with the system? Because you have two main issues. You have an amazing game, people don't know nothing about how to do with it, and they can't really get onboarded that easily. And the other thing that many game designers don't really go into, and many learning designers don't go into, which is the offboarding. So Tara's done with her game. Okay, I'm done with the game. I'm done with the game-based learning. I'm done with the gamification. Now I'm back to real world, okay? I'm back to 9 to 5. What should I do? How can I take what I learned and put it in OJT or put it in my day-to-day activity? See, this is what always misses, and this is what Tabatha was talking about. You start from the analysis to know how to onboard, how to put them in the journey, what will they get, affordance, and then offboard so they can continue on with newfound knowledge.
That's really, really cool. I think we're all taking notes there. Yeah, really, such a good breakdown. Thank you, Mo. And then, I think maybe let's talk about good gamification and bad gamification. Maybe we can like take what you've mentioned earlier, and you know, like what would tell you that this is a good gamified experience, and what would tell you that it's a waste of time and money? And what are the features of that?
I think that's a difficult one, right? But I mean, again, it's when you're looking at it, if there are many times like the game designers will design, like I know Mo and I have a little bit what we call self-hugging, and that comes, that's a term from Monica Cornetti, where we kind of pick certain things that we like because we like that aesthetic. But I think really looking at, is it effective? Is it good at gamification? Is it going to enhance the learning of that business objective? And that's really good gamification. Will this, when layered on top of the learning, add value to the people taking it and not dissuade them or disengage them? And there are times where, you know, just throwing those badges and points, and I was talking to a mentee on something, and they were like, oh, I have a volunteer opportunity. They're looking at gamification. And so we just had a conversation. I said, I can guarantee what they're probably going to talk about is points, badges, and leaderboards. But without understanding the audience, how do they know that that's going to work? And it's really that analysis to understand it. Yes, it will work. And I would say more often than not, the gamification that's produced is not always that good. Yep. Because either you do things, the designer does things that doesn't engage that audience. They haven't gotten into their learner's head. And sometimes you go as deep as learner personas. Sometimes it's just understanding the role and what type of people are in that, because salespeople are driven certain ways. Other people are driven different careers. I worked in healthcare, very adrenaline junkie, very, taking care of people. In healthcare, you are taking care of them on their worst day. There's a lot of alpha personalities in that particular grouping, but there's other industries that they're not. It might be a little bit of a mix or things like that. So again, it's always looking at your audience and the business objectives if it can layer in properly.
Okay, so I'm coming in with my arsenal here. So I'm gonna share something that proves that I'm extremely good at Googling. So if I don't know if it's gonna show or not, but hopefully it would. So this is a paper that is called "The Dark Side of Gamification: An Overview of Negative Effects of Gamification in Education" by Armando Toda and Pedro Valle, and I'm not butchering their name. But anywho, so they did studies over a period of 5 years on different educational institutions. Some of them are in business administration, computer science, IT. Thank you, Tara, for that. And others in high schoolers, arts, you name it. So let me tell you about the dark side, the awful things that they've managed to find. And 12 studies have shown that, one, they actually had loss of performance because of gamification. This is when gamification goes ugly, okay? And also, learners that were more active in the gamified activity, as a matter of fact, they scored lower than their peers in the transfer skill test. Because again, there you go, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, when people walk away talking more about the game portions of it than the learning portions of it, you have definitely come off the mark. There is that balance in that design that it needs to be motivating. Mm-hmm. But if you go to the opposite side, it can be distracting, and that's where this research is showing.
Yep. And learners were actually, exactly as how Tabatha was mentioning, were more focused on the points rather than the assessment. That doesn't mean that they were competitive or did this appeal to my competitive nature? No, there wasn't a learning. They were just too focused on hoarding points, if you may. And then learners did not like being penalized in the gamified activity. And by the way, there's actually something in gamification that we always talk about, which is loss aversion. And it has to be dealt with a grain of salt. Because if you put too much loss to the extent of humiliation, people start to get offended and they start to feel that this is not really in their favor. Now, when you give them loss with a purpose and loss with the possibility for them to bounce back out of failure, now we're talking. So that was 12 studies that did show this. On the other side, 5 studies did show that there were declining motivation across the entire gamification campaign. Learners started the activity motivated due to the novelty of the gamification system. However, it loses this motivation over time because it's not lavished enough anymore. Or, well, we kind of figured it out. 9 studies did show undesired behavior. Yes, when people get competitive, they get ugly and unethical behavior starts to foster, okay? If you don't believe me, go play with your cousins any day. Like Monopoly, we steal from one another. Risk, we do unethical stuff. Or we basically like destroy the whole game just for the sake of not losing. So, undesired behavior. You have the number of finished tasks declined in the gamified environment, which was the opposite of what the authors expected. It actually declined because people were more into doing anything to get the points and trying to do the tasks in an ineffective way just to pass by. Also, learners stated that the system was not enjoyable and it was a waste of time. Last but not least, learners were more focused and frustrated about collecting badges and points, which is the ugly thing about points. Okay? Because, well, they didn't really get to the purpose part of what Ryan and Deshi were mentioning before. So in order for you to really tap into this, as I've mentioned, you need to go into those 3 aspects. You need to look into people's means of agency and autonomy. You have to offer them choice. You have to work on their competency, and they can see it, they can feel it, they can know it. You give them rapid feedback. We are like children. Bob Pike said it before. Adults are babies in big bodies. I am a baby in a big body. Well, I'm a baby anyway, but I'm a baby in a big body. I would love anyone to give me a lollipop. I would love anyone to give me a reward. I would love anyone to give me something that would make me happy. But if you actually told me that I'm going to get that lollipop for a reason, and that made me do a better job, aces. And then that reason has to be purposefully enough to make me perform better on my job, on my day-to-day activity, which is the relatedness part that I was just mentioned. So if you have those three in tandem, we're doing a good job. I'm Moash. This is my TEDx talk.
That was really good. I think Tabatha's quote about if people are talking more about the like gamified part of your course than the actual stuff that they were supposed to learn, like that's a red flag. That means that something is like a bit off balance. I really think we should like print that on a t-shirt because it is very profound. There's such a cool like breakdown though. Thank you. I think like maybe we touched on this to some extent, and that is this idea of like gamification and cognitive load. Like when does gamification, or like to some extent, sometimes gamification can just be clutter. Instead of helping you get through the clutter, it's adding to the clutter. What are your tips and tricks for managing or building something that doesn't make unnecessary, extraneous cognitive load?
I think you have to build with a cadence and, making sure that gamification, especially when you're using narrative, movies have cadence. You have a beginning, middle, and end. And to me, when you're building your gamification process, you need to, okay, by this point, they should have gotten to X. Maybe these are the rewards or whatever you've built into it so that it keeps them wanting to go forward. So I think it's really, my first degree of the 8 that I'm working on or finished was film and video production, right? And that's, it's always about the story. And when you're looking at movies and things like that, you can see the cadence. Oh, Hallmark movies, within the first couple minutes, you're going to get that meet cute, and then that's going to go through to the end. And the same thing with when we're building, it's what is the cadence? How are you keeping that learner involved? If you go you go dancing and you go to a nightclub and they put a slow song in there for you to go get your drink and do those types of things. And I think that that's the other thing that we need to build into our thought process, is that cadence of making sure that we're keeping them going, and not throwing too much at them, right? Because as you know, in learning, if you're throwing the kitchen sink and everything at the beginning, you're just going to be lost at the end.
Well, when it comes to cognitive load, germane cognitive load, which is where all of the deep processing happens, is extremely minute in its own capacity. And the point is, as human beings, we don't really take one choice and one decision altogether. We couple them. We gather them up all together. So any chess players here, not that I'm a good chess player, but I'm just saying. Okay, well, let's just say that we all know about chess. Okay, we have someone here, Ganesh. Okay, cool. So when you go and play chess, how many choices do you take moving on to the board? Well, I could move the pawn 2 steps forward, or maybe 1 step forward, or I'm going to move 2 pawns ahead. Or see, all of this are the amount of choices and the amount of possibilities that a person can do only at the beginning of the game, not in mid-game. Mid-game is something else. Mid-game is like bloodbath. But I'm just saying, at the beginning of the game, this is what happens. So these are 3 decisions, 3 choices, all gathered in one. Game designers and people that do research and development in games, they look at how far a player, in our case, a learner, would make different types of decisions altogether. So when they say one decision, only single decision, this is a no game. Like, basically, you throw a dice, you get a 1, you get a 2, shoot some ladders, or snake some ladders, depends on where you are in the world, okay? It's a no-brainer. Kids get giggity about it. Adults, they feel bored. Why? No autonomy. Okay? When you have 2 choices, okay, now we're making some progress. 3 choices, let me take some time to think. Monopoly, for instance. Should I move? Should I buy? Should I sell? Should I steal? Should I do what exactly? More choices. Games like, for instance, Catan, Gloomhaven. My background's in board games, so it's not really into video games. I like low tech stuff. You always go beyond 4, 5. Now, when you go into 6 to 7, this is something called considered into depth and overwhelming. This is when cognitive load screams out at you and tells you, okay, this is inhumane what you're doing to me. And this is what we think about when we're thinking about a learning game. How many sets of behaviors do you want a learner to look into, make a choice about, and also to have a decision upon? Because if you're putting way too many choices, you're getting into frustration. If you're putting a few number of choices, it could be strategical, or it could be extremely annoying for them because they feel that it's like a scripted choice. So what we do is that we go into completely strike of luck, which is 100% dice, or completely skill made. 1% to 100% here, 1% to 100% here. And we play on that scale. How far do I want the person to apply luck? How far do I want the person to apply skill? Obviously, in our case, we apply a venture more skill than luck. That's why one of the most popular games since the 1970s are text-based games and choose your own adventure. Since I'm in my 30s, so I know that many people might have experienced something called DOS. To all the new kids here in the block that do TikToks, we used to play with black screens. That's basically what our OS was about. So when DOS, you go into a room and they tell you, okay, you're in a cave. What's a rabbit in a cave? What am I doing? What's going on? These are the number of choices that you need to consider about. No points, no nothing. Go left, go right. Is there a key? Is there this on the door? See, gamification can be about narrative, can be only text, can be skill-based, can be based on your own intuition. I can be planting that text-based adventure with things that only the learner would be able to know about based on the model or the framework or the technique that I'm teaching them. So through the choose your own adventure or text-based game that they're going through, they're learning how to utilize their resources further. And to end this spiel, basically, you go into a strategy. So that strategy is utilization of the resources you're offering to the learner alongside the program duration, because you don't want to be giving too much to utilize in a very short time, or too little to utilize in a very long time. Okay? And this would be divided by the severity of the mechanic, the behavior that you're allowing the learner to take into place. So when you're increasing the severity, you're affecting the utilization. When you're increasing the utilization and the program duration, it decreases the severity of it, so it becomes boring. So what you need to do is a balance that would equal 1 between utilizing the program and its duration and the severity of how far the person can take a choice. That's basically it.
Cool. Tabatha, would you like to add anything to that?
I think, no, I mean, he's on the money in the sense of you have to look, I mean, in the real world, we are given choices every day, right? And that's what makes life interesting. Sometimes you only have 1 to 2 choices, and sometimes you kind of feel backed in a corner. And then there's other times where you have more opportunity. And I think that really it comes down to, like Mo talks about, his agency, is giving your learners that opportunity to make that choice, to fail and learn and come back, but giving them that opportunity in gamification to come back, because, you know, Mario Brothers, you had 3 little lives, you could go through, get to the same point. You had that resurrection. So I think that making sure that there's that opportunity to learn, or you're going to get them disengaged if they're just kind of like, hey, what's the point? I keep dying. So you want to try and give them that opportunity. You made this choice this time, make a different choice next time. And that's where the learning happens.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's like so many creative ways we can embed feedback in the learning journey using gamification, and we can use it strategically to really like drive home those learning objectives or what you want people to take away. And yeah, this has been really, really interesting. There was a follow-up question about the study you mentioned, Mo. Can you just quickly repeat it's the dark side of gamification? I think we'll share
the negative effect. Let me share the name of the study again and the people that did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it was a meta-analysis. So they did analysis of analyses. Okay, cool. So that could be like So to the person who messaged me, you can follow up on that. We'll also probably link to the study in the follow-up course so that you can check that out. I think for the next part of this roundtable discussion, let's talk about like the more practical stuff. Like, how do you actually go about making a gamified learning experience? And to kick us off, I want to start with a question, which is, what are your tips and tricks for, if you don't have a lot of time, what are your tips and tricks for making a very quick gamified learning experience, or adding mechanics to a learning experience.
Quick. This one, I'll let Mo go first because he's already like ready to go. Like, he's like,
There is no quick way to do
exactly. Like there is, if you're doing gamification, it's either you're all in or you're not. Like there is no, oh, hey, I want to layer this in to make it a little more exciting. It's either you are going to do it or, at that point, if you're wanting to add a game, add game-based learning. If you're wanting to make it look sexy. But if you're actually doing gamification, it is a system. It's like, it's kind of like telling an instructional designer, I want you to build it pretty, but I don't want you to do any analysis, but I want to make the end goal. Right? And that's the thing, is there is no quick way to do it if you're wanting it to be effective.
Well, the quickest way to do this, I think, is, well, first off, finish creating a learning experience from start to end, knowing that it would reap rewards, and I mean learning rewards, not the other rewards, and it would benefit the people. And then, okay, how can I make this better? And I'm not doing this for a client. I'm just saying, okay, let's just close the room on you, lock yourself up, and see how you can take one single program and turn it into something more immersive and engaging. Okay, that can be by maybe adding further means of feedback, by adding a narrative and a story. It could be by letting the people take certain choices. It can be so many different things. But, well, we all go back to a certain Bible when it comes to game design and research, and that is the MDA, Mechanics, Dynamics, and Aesthetics. And that was done by Marc LeBlanc and Robert Hickey. And the MDA looks at any game design needs to have certain mechanics, aka the steam engines that move the thing forward. So my 2 cents here would be, well, number one, because I have the presentation right here beside me, evolve an existing game. You can take an existing game and choose to change something fundamental about it. Add or remove certain mechanics or rules. Like, for instance, everyone here played Monopoly for some unknown reason. This game has been phenomenally global. Okay, what can you change about Monopoly? I've seen one person before that would hinder anyone at a pawn from moving forward unless they fulfill a question. And they wouldn't be getting money from it. Actually, they would be offering money every time they answer a question. If they don't pay. But the point is, the game changed where you need to finish the money that you have. So it became a game about finalizing all of the money that you have, but monopolizing on learn. So you can add or remove a specific rule or a specific mechanic. That's a possibility. You could also add a specific constraint. You can pick on an aspect and then dial it to 100, to 11, to 10,000. All of those are certain possibilities that you could do. Or you could do something that I do like a lot, which is, give me a moment. Well, we've been working on a new card game here, and it was in conflict management. So I went through Cards Against Humanity, Slugs, and
Exploding Kittens.
And Exploding Kittens, 4 different games. I borrowed mechanics, and I borrowed mechanics from Twister, and I created a game on conflict management. So what you could do is actually you can take mechanics, not games, mechanics, certain aspects from different games, mishmash them, Frankenstein them, if you may, and make up something new out of it. And this is basically what happened. The game simply is that people have a set of 7 different cards in their hand, and they're trying to basically discard them all to finish their hand. But they need to finish different conflict situations. Some situations they find in the cards, certain situations that they face with one another, other situation where they need to replace their hand or change turns. and then they get a card called Blaze. So Blaze, they go and they spin, obviously Twister, they spin a wheel, and accordingly they fall into a situation and they need to fix that situation. Otherwise they will be striked, or they will be saved, or they will need to choose someone else to be Blaze, and so on. So I Frankensteined a game with 120 diverse conflict situations, and I made a game out of it. This is game-based learning. This is not gamification. So you could do something like this. This is a possibility. What else? Well, you can take one core mechanic and then circulate an entire thing around it. So you want a game where people are doing planning. Simply, and this is something that I've started board games with, I need to do a game about WBS, about work breakdown structure. What is work breakdown structure? What are the techniques in it? How does it happen? Okay, what can I do to let people have more choice in making a better structure? Maybe I can give them a faulty framework. Maybe I can give them a framework that has hidden aspects that they need to find out. Sometimes we can actually build games out of the frameworks that we teach or we design. Okay? This is all what I'm mentioning are concerned with game-based learning. From a gamification system standpoint, it's something else. You will need to look at what people do on day-to-day basis. What do they do from a behavioral perspective? And then look at the kind of mechanics that would either increase that behavior or maybe mitigate certain behaviors according to the learning objective or the performance gap that you're trying to basically close. And those are the easiest ways that you can look at either a gamification system or a game-based learning, because in both cases, you would need to do your action mapping, you need to do your own analysis, and also you need to have specific actionable objectives to work on, and you need to do empathy mapping, like how Tabatha said. You need to know who are your people, not their learning styles, not their personality assessments, their discs, their MBTIs, their multiple intelligence, and all of that, their kinesthetic, their auditorial. Obviously, not olfactory or gustatory, because I'm not going to teach them based on how they taste. No, otherwise, that's wine tasting. That's something else. We do that in Spain for different reasons with cheese. But that's not the game that we want here in Egypt or in other countries where we're going to be teaching people something. So I want to know, what do they do every day? What's the scope? What's the scale of their knowledge? Who are they? What background do they come from? What do they know about the topic? What are they afraid of? What motivates them to learn? What demotivates them to learn? And let's build it from there. I guess that's this cheat sheet.
And ultimately, it's still not going to be quick.
Oh, yeah.
So I get the feeling that quick gamification is like the self-defeating statement. That's like a oxymoron, I guess.
Yeah, or it's going to be, if it was quick, it's going to I'm going to almost guarantee that you're going to end up in that bad gamification process where it was attempted, it wasn't successful, now it's put the stakeholders with a bad taste in their mouth because it didn't meet the objectives that were set or you were promising.
Definitely.
Some person even said that we're bribing people with badges and points. Not going to say who, but he said that.
I actually want to combine a question that was asked earlier with a question that I have lined up here. So someone earlier asked, do you have any, can you share examples of gamification that works well? And what I wanted to ask now was, what are the tools that you use for gamification? And I think that we've learned now from what you just mentioned that it's very contextual. The tool you choose, there can be thousands of tools, but you need to have the right mechanic delivered in the right way. Otherwise, you're just going to waste time. So maybe I can combine my questions and say, can you share any examples of game mechanics that were absolutely perfectly introduced in a learning journey to make it so much better?
Tabatha, want to go on this and then I piggyback?
No, I'll let you go first because I know that you recently just had that one close. What was the mechanic that you just finished that board game that was much bigger than what I was what I was expecting? Because I got
by 3 meters.
yeah, I saw the prototype and it was like, oh, I'm like, okay, I'm picturing I'm like, damn, that thing's huge. What was the mechanic that you think that kept people so interested and engaged through that process?
The mechanic that we all enjoy as human beings, instant gratification. Okay, I mean, I do something, give me what I deserve right now. And that's, so there are certain mechanics that you will plant in a learning game and it would instantly work. A, victory condition. B, you need strategy. C, rapid feedback, aka instant gratification. You need to have a progression system. You need to have a curiosity mechanic, which is what's going to happen next? What more would go? I mean, would the prices go up? Will this unlock something interesting to me? Or it's going to be something awful, and this is loss of urge, because a game without something that would annoy us and have some failure, it would not be challenging enough. And also you need, well, it can be teams and guilds. And those teams and guilds as a mechanic can be competition, can be collaboration, can be collaboration, competition, collaboration, come with me. And what was it? The last one, curiosity, loss of urge, strategy, victory condition, and you can have either of both. You can have fixed rewards or you can have random rewards. Fixed rewards would put an innate behavior where every time William passes by at the beginning of the Monopoly board, they get $200 or like Monopoly dollars. Or I don't know what would happen next, but I do this and well, here you go, 200. I didn't know. Next time, oh no, that was just one time. Maybe another time you would do that. So when you mix and match between those different mechanics, specifically victory condition, loss of urge, curiosity, and progression system, rapid feedback, you can make sure to make yourself a learning game. If you took them out, specifically rapid feedback and progression system, you're just playing any other game. But it has to be a game that levels up in a way or another.
Awesome. I think we should maybe move into the Q&A part of the discussion. And I see there are quite a few like really good questions in the chat. Tabatha and Mo, I don't know if you've been checking it out. Are there any that stand out that you'd really like to answer?
I didn't have time this time.
That's totally fine.
I'm going to give it to Tara because she can. I'm usually a producer on different things, so
I copied this question. It was a recent one, but I really liked this question specifically, and then I've got a few others. So just let me know when you're ready.
So game-based learning is actually saying, you're going to play this game, and during this game, you are going to learn different things to get you to the end. Gamification, your learning is set. You have your learning objectives, and you are layering those elements in to help you move the story, along, whether it's an epic meaning story where you're trying to help. I'm trying to think. I don't like the Jovians, right? We're working on something with the characters of the Jovians, and they're going through this. You're going through as the learner, being part of this epic story. So gamification is using those mechanics to motivate in that learning, and in game-based learning, you are playing a game. Gamification, you are not playing a game. It's using the elements to keep people motivated.
Yep. And the Jovians is a story that we created because Jovian is one of the moons of Jupiter. So I just decided to create a Star Trek kind of game.
Yeah, my personal aesthetic is space. Yours is usually more fantasy, so we're doing a space fantasy in our.
I'm more of a D&D kind of guy, whimsical fantasy. I wish I would die and get resurrected in like the world of Lord of the Rings in Midgard for some reason, but that's not possible. So yeah, I've seen a question where people are asking about like, did the host share an actual game? Well, here's one. This is a game that didn't really take a long time for us to do this. This is a game in planning that we did before. It's called the Map of Wonders. It's cliche, I know, but just bear with me, okay? So Map of Wonders is a very simple game. I was explaining something in an event. It's called Natural Planning by David Allen, and how people always start with action, arrange, organize, brainstorm. Why are we doing this? And then the purpose. But instead, we should be starting from the purpose all the way to the next action. So what I did is, okay, what can really stop an action from happening? Well, problems with the team. What do they do? How do they put up a plan? So I created a set of questions about social media, because the event was about social media. And I distributed it across different islands. And I used an app on the phone. It's called Action Bound. And I wanted people to go through the app, one phone per team, across 8 different teams per board, because I had like 3 different facilitators, and every facilitator had like 30 people on a board to go through this. Now, the trick here, the algorithm and the mathematics was how many cards to put on each and every island, and to let people rush into answering as much questions as possible with the biggest values. But the point is, how will they delegate themselves? Who will answer the questions? Who would research the questions? And every time they answer, I stop them with something called an action card to waste more time. So they need to delegate. So I just took what planning is and I turned it into mechanics, and I created this. So this is how it looked like. Yes, they were in shorts because we're on the beach. So yeah, it was by the Red Sea and people were on the beach. And you can see we played this game with around like 70 different people. Okay, that was the game. It's the one about planning. Another game that I could show, I suppose, is this game. I Frankensteined one famous mechanic from an abstract board game called Tesoro. And Tesoro is basically based on tiles that you don't know where the direction of it would go to. And these are how the tiles look like. So Tara steps on one of the edges of the tiles, and what happens in the game is that I'm trying to kick you out of the game by flipping and switching with the tiles. This is not how Tesoro is like, but I shifted it. I took a mechanic and I took a rule and I added constraints. And I changed it. And instead of 2 players playing this, I made it 8 teams playing this. And it turned out this way. So people were playing this game, and every time they step on a tile, in order for them to flip it and change it and do something different with it, they need to answer a question about employment, because there was an employment event with HR people. And every time they do that, they work on the plan. And I was simulating what is happening in the market and the contingencies. So again, I shifted some mechanics, I simulated and I projected an existing action that happens with professionals in day-to-day activities. Okay, that's how it looked like. And this is me leaning down, obviously, and I'm trying to let them, play the game. The one that I was mentioning to you, and that will be the last one, the one that takes 3 days in the making. This is a game that we play with the African Union and the African Parliament, and this game takes 3 days. So it's a race, and people, upon each and every pivot, they go through a series of quizzes and actions regarding diversity and inclusion, cognitive biases, competency matrices, behavior indicators. And what I did is, this is a pure gamification system, as a matter of fact, not game-based learning. Because I took a race and then I planted the race with different miniature games. So instead of them having a complete a complete learning program that would span for 3 days, they actually have one game that has miniature challenges embedded within it. And at the end of it, they actually go through a final workshop, and they pick up on nominees that they want to hire, because this is a game in recruitment and selection. And at the end, someone wins, they get chocolates that we ship from Egypt all the way to them. And that's basically it. So those are 3 examples that I would share based on what I've mentioned. That, well, you can Frankenstein, you can take an existing program, and then you can plant it with miniature stuff. But the point is, it all has to match. Affordance has to be relevant, and it has to be packed with logical choices that can make the learner learn something.
And Neil has a good question. Like, how do you assess, did the gamification work? You're going to be assessing that. Like, gamification is layered into your learning design. The way you would assess a learning design without gamification and looking at those aspects, did the changes in behavior that you taught through a gamified experience have what you were expected? So there isn't anything special in the assessment from somebody who's done a learning program without gamification and a learning program with gamification. Because ultimately, again, you're working towards learning objectives. You are just layering in gamification to be able to motivate people and move through. Yes, there are games within the gamification item, and that's where, is this examples of game-based learning or is it examples of gamification? It's a larger system that also had games within it.
And you never present a game without prototyping the out of it, okay? Because trust me, I've been there. Oh, looks like a good game. I'm gonna take it to people, and something just happens. Okay, so prototype as much as you want, because when you're in front of learners, it will affect you, and it will be bad rep for the business. Okay, been there before. So prototype, iterate, and once you're done, test it again, make notes, work on feedback, and then present the final meal to your learners.
That's really awesome. I realize we're over time now, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up.
All right.
And then we can. Tabatha, do you have a closing remark? Actually, let's do that. We'll give each of you a closing statement, and then we'll wrap it up.
I think for me, just realizing that there is a lot of hard to distinguish game-based learning from gamification. And in that, one is a game that you're playing to learn. The other is layering in systems to keep people motivated. And I think that that's the main thing. And if they're walking away wow, that game was amazing. I came into a project at a new company, and it was oh wow, everybody was talking about one particular module, which was a game-based learning, but they were talking about the module and the way it looked and how the aesthetics were, and not about the learning. And I'm oh, we missed a mark on that one, And then Mo and I are actually starting a whole gamification newsletter coming up as well. So
yeah, so well, I've been working with Tabatha. Well, for the sake of us doing a course right now with Dr. Tabatha. See what I did here? Okay, so with Dr. Tabatha on something, and I'm leaving for you guys a miniature course that I've sent to EduFlow. So hopefully that will be of benefit. At the end of it, at the very end of it, you will find a link to a newsletter. Just subscribe to it. We will be sending a couple of insights, a couple of tips here and there, some information that we can share about gamification, game-based learning best practice. And in that mini course, I've also left a couple of resources, some of the books that I do appreciate a lot, that did teach me a lot about gamification, and more information about what is an experience, what is choice, what is agency, when to gamify, why gamify, and all of that jazz. So hopefully speaking, that can be an addition, and we'll be looking forward to sending you stuff. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank Mo and Tabatha, thank you so much for this incredible discussion. I think the amount of amazing resources and stuff people have probably been taking down has been incredible. Like I can see there's like so much knowledge in this space and so much passion for this field. And I really appreciate your time. I shared your LinkedIn profile links in the chat in case anyone wants to give you a follow. We'll also be sending out a link to a follow-up course that contains this workshop recording and this awesome follow-up course that Mo built. So it's like an embedded course in the EduFlow course. So you'll be able to learn about all of these cool things and get access to all the different resources that Mo was talking about. So yeah, just keep an eye on your inbox in the next few days, and we'll send you a link to the follow-up course. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll hopefully see you at the next EduFlow Academy workshop.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Tara.
Our next one is tomorrow, actually, and it's about form versus function with the team at Genially, actually, and Peter Shea. And that's going to be really, really fun. We're going to be talking about
2 awesome people.
Yeah.
Both I love,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be attending.
Awesome. Oh yeah, we'll see you there. And have a good day, everyone.